Good morning and welcome back. You're still listening to Salam Media in the name of the show's news and views of myself, Salailo Makwidiri. The recent suspension of foreign aid, including funding for the U.S. President's Emerging Plan for AIDS Relief, or PEPFAR for short, has caused a ripple of concern across the globe, particularly with South Africa being the country with the highest number of people living with HIV. This freeze is a serious matter that could endanger the lives of millions. PEPFAR has been quite instrumental in providing life-saving antiretrovirals to over 20 million people worldwide, including a significant number here in South Africa. And it has been touted to be, the reasons why South Africa has been head and shoulders above everyone else when it comes to how we've dealt with the HIV pandemic for the last 25, 30 years, so far. And with the suspension potentially jeopardizing treatment and prevention programs, it's crucial to understand the broader implications of this decision. And today we're joined by Suraiya Nawab. She's the director of the Muslim AIDS program to discuss what this means for the fight against HIV and AIDS in South Africa and what actions can be taken to mitigate the devastating impact on the lives of so many. Suraiya, assalamu alaikum. Jazakallah so much for joining us. Thank you for giving us your time and good morning.
Wa alaikum salam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Thank you for having me. And I hope this can give some sort of information about MAP, the Muslim Aid Program, and how this order has been affecting us since Monday.
Yeah, I think let's start with that. Your organization, the Muslim AIDS, program. How do you view this? How do you react to this announcement by President Trump from the U.S. The halting of foreign aid, including the funding for HIV/AIDS treatment and prevention to millions of people. South Africa, we know, is one of the countries that has benefited quite significantly from this program. Your reaction?
When this was in the media, it was in social media. We heard it when the U.S. government changed into a Republican government, and so all these orders were signed off on the first day of inauguration last week, on the 20th. We knew there was something going to happen, and we knew that it was going to affect our PEPFAR funding. Although PEPFAR is not the only funder that MAP uses, the National Department of Health South Africa is our core funder, our main funder, which is actually what it's supposed to be, because we're actually carrying out the details of the National Strategic Plan, which our government prescribes for people living with AIDS, infected and affected people. So our co-funding comes from National Department of Health. However, we do have programs of different projects. This one that we're having now from PEPFAR is a program that is in partnership with HIVSA, HIV SA. So HIVSA is a primary partner and we are the secondary partner. So our funding through PEPFAR is actually through HIVSA. It's not a direct program that MAP is running, only through PEPFAR. So I think that's important. The reason why I say it's important because it affects the one project of MAP that is running primarily in Gauteng, but more widely, we also network with organizations, youth organizations like Right to Care, Anova Health, Reproductive Health Unit. These are partners directly with PEPFAR, and so we also network with these organizations in terms of us as MAP delivering services on the ground. So the first reaction, obviously, when we got the order just said stop work now, right? And so early morning, I was called up for a meeting as the director of MAP, and I had a hunch that this is going to be the program, the agenda for the meeting, and so it was. And immediately, obviously, I had a meeting with our HIVSA seniors because we go through them to PEPFAR, so they're the first point of call for us. And they said, yes, indeed, we need to down tools immediately. The last day of service that they would be funded, that MAP would be funded for, was the 24th, which was Friday.
Mm.
We immediately called all the staff back. Obviously, we had to sit and talk to them, bearing in mind that MEP is proudly a 99.9% female um, staffed organization. And the reason why I say that is that uh, our staff are all female. A lot of staff on the ground, as well as in management, have been with us for many years. My problem is, on my dilemma is that there are 25 staff members right now who effectively don't have a job.
Mm.
So we were lucky that we had given out our salaries normally go out on the 25th. So by Saturday, people got their salaries, and then we spoke to him and said, "Listen, we've already paid salaries, and for all intents and purposes, the whole of January has been serviced." So they did allow us to continue. So at least staff got that, but there's a lot of disappointment. There were a lot of tears. A lot of people, a lot of the mothers are single parents. So for us, it was quite difficult to speak to all the staff, especially the field workers, because they're the ones that are affected the most. Most importantly for me is the beneficiaries. We as MAP have been providing essential services on the ground. So our program presently with HIPSA is for adolescent girls and young women. It's a program where we go out and speak to young people about how to protect themselves, how to be more assertive, how to live positive lives. We look at treatment action in terms of those that are positive, get them to clinics, link them. They caregivers of younger girls and girl and boy children. Look at them, see to their needs. When donors come along, we give sort of in winter, it's a blanket drive. During Christmas time, it's Christmas hampers. During the time, it's stationery packs for the learners. Also, every alternate month, there are food parcels that go out to the families. So yeah, a big dilemma for us since Monday. We're hoping that we can sort of recoup as much as we can
Mm.
and try to integrate as many staff members as we can into our other programs. However, there are going to be staff that are going to be out of out of a job in February. As a director, it's always difficult to break news like this to staff members.
Mm.
The other big dilemma for us is that we access a lot of very high quality training for management staff, for the field staff, and all of that through PEPFAR. And I really feel that that sort of training really enhances our service delivery on the ground, uh, as well as from top up in terms of our accounting systems, corporate governance, and all of that is affected because a lot of the training comes through PEPFAR. So, in terms of what we do going forward, is that obviously we're going to have to wait out the 90-day period because um, the the terms of the order that has been the executive order is on re-evaluating and realigning U.S.
Mm.
foreign aid. Right? That's the wording. They've given us up to 90 days, and they said within the 90 days, a lot of the organizations obviously are going to appeal, and the U.S. government themselves are again re-evaluating, realigning the foreign aid. And so we're going to just have to wait out. So our program actually ends, the HISA contract ends at the end of September this year. So we
Mm.
basically have about 7 months of work still uh, that was planned, projected, targets projected, and actually MEF was doing extremely well with HISA. So we're going to have to look ahead and see how we're going, but we also have to wait for directives from him. They'll get directives from PEPFAR, and PEPFAR gets the directives directly from U.S. foreign aid. Um, my appeal is that I think our National Department of Health need to play a bigger part in funding programs like this. We know, and as you mentioned earlier, HIV and AIDS, TB, these sort of diseases that our country is fraught with over many years, um, is quite an important part of the positive health being of our communities. And so I just think that National Department of Health and filtering down to the provincial departments of health need to have more robust strategies so they can fund NGOs like MEP and so many others to be able to do the work efficiently on the ground. When we depend too much on foreign aid, this is something that the biggest risk is for the beneficiaries who are the ones that lose out.
Mm,
We had the same situation in 2005 when George Bush was the president, and they had an abstinence program geared towards youth between the ages of 14 and 30 years old. We had a robust program for 5 years, 2005, 6, 7, 8, 9, and it was going to be an extension from 9 to another 5 years. And when they had a change of government over the 4 years, for their 4 year elections in the US, that whole program was pulled under the rug.
mm,
And so everybody, all organizations that had done the excellence program for the previous 5 years could not do an extension for the following 5 years, although we had already signed contracts. And so we had to wait for what the outcome was then, and that program was never reinstated. However, PEPFAR then came up with programs like what we're doing right now.
mm,
And many others in terms of community dialogues. There's many organizations that do different programs from, and it's not only PEPFAR, it's also CDC, the Center for Disease Control, it's USAID, so it's US Embassy, they have their own community grants program. So it's all those programs. So you can just imagine there are many, many organizations today sitting in South Africa with beneficiaries that are just left in the lurch, which is an
mm,
unfortunate
mm,
situation. Hopefully, our National Department of Health can come on board and at least try and help us
mm.
to continue services as best we can. Thank
Mm.
you.
I would like to touch a bit on that before I let you go. You know, there have been suggestions that the current shifts in global funding could provide an opportunity for African countries to almost, strengthen collaborations within the global south itself. Do you
Yes.
see this as a viable path forward? And what roles can countries like South Africa play in leading such initiatives, considering the successes that we've had as a country when it comes to combating the scourge and almost managing the HIV and AIDS pandemic?
I think it's very important that we actually look at that. The global south and South Africa in particular still have one of the highest prevalence rates for HIV, although, as you've mentioned, we've had a lot of successes in various specific areas of the pandemic, right?
Mm,
And so definitely, I think the Global Fund needs to look at, so our government, part of the government funding is also through Global Fund. And so Global Fund, I think, needs to look at proportionality in terms of countries with high prevalence. And then if it filters down through to our specific government and then directly to the National Department of Health, then that money must be used prudently so that the service delivery for the beneficiaries is the ultimate goal, should be the ultimate intention for any sort of funding. So yes, I think Africa as a whole, and we know Africa as a whole has high prevalence rates, need to start being more self-sufficient and not also, secondly, that's my second point, is that we need to start being more self-sufficient and not depend so much for such a big portion of our HIV/AIDS budget to be coming from outside. I would like to see that we have the bigger portion of the budget internally, like in South Africa specifically, and then for certain pockets of programs like this one for adolescent girls and young women, those can be projects that overseas funders or other or even big pharma and other role players in the donor arena can actually help or fund or sponsor specific programs. So definitely, I think Africa, particularly the global South, needs to really look at this and see where we can actually close the gaps before they even occur.
No, definitely.
So hopefully we can lobby. I know there are big organizations that have received millions of dollars, who are much worse off than Messi right now. And I know that there's already a motion to approach NDO, National Department of Health, the NDOH, and to say to them, how do you come on board and try and help us navigate the lack of funds right now in the middle of programs.
Mm.
So hopefully, I think it's going to be an ongoing thing until the 90s expire, until in between when the U.S. government decides to again reevaluate, realign, and come back to PEPFAR and all these U.S. foreign aid organizations and tell them this is what you go back and tell your partners.
All right. I think we're going to leave on that note, Suraiya. Jazakallah so much for sharing your insights with us, and we'll continue to follow the story closely as it develops. Really, really appreciate it.
Thank you very much. It would be nice also that if it's a pleasant moment. I'm sitting in a workshop
Sure.
to look at mitigating the sort of issue with other directors. And so one of the things is I think also while I have the platform to say that and appeal to the community to also be able to dig a bit deeper into their pockets and perhaps give out some sort of donations to MAP so that the the beneficiaries on the ground are not as badly affected as right now when there's nothing that we can go back to them for. So I'd really like to appeal to that.
Contact details for those that would be interested. How can they get hold of you guys?
They can get hold of me on my mobile number 082 785 0858. Alternatively, they can email me on snawab SNAWAB
Mm-hmm.
at Jamiat JAMIATSA.org.
All right, there you have it. That was Muslim AIDS Program Director Suraiya Nawab. I really, really appreciate you giving us your time, and I will definitely be sharing those details with our listeners. But we're going to video for now.
Jazakallah khair. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Founder and CEO, Muslim AIDS Program Director, rather, Suraiya Noah. But yeah, just giving us, the implications of this potential freeze on PEPFAR funding, and I think they can't be overstated. I think South Africa, particularly, with the amount of, the millions and millions of people that are living with HIV, this is not just a health crisis, a matter of life or death, to be honest. And it would be interesting to see how the next 90 days does, yield the results that we would want, so that the successes that have been reached for over 30 years when it comes to combating the scourge of HIV and AIDS and the education and the antiretroviral programs that have been rolled out quite brilliantly, with the assistance of PEPFAR and its funding, all that work doesn't ultimately go down the drain. So yeah, it's going to be really, really interesting. But then again, it's a call, eh? It's a call for our government to say, hey, the United States doesn't want to play ball anymore. Quote unquote, they are realigning, their global efforts when it comes to aid. And it looks like countries like South Africa are not, in favor anymore when it comes to the government of the United States of America. And it's time for our government to start getting their house in order and making sure that, these programs are funded right here in South Africa so that, you don't get caught with your pants down when countries like the US start pulling out because of obviously the geopolitical issues that surround our relationship with the US. So yeah, really interesting times ahead. We're going to take a quick break. When we come back, we'll be speaking to Raphael Bahebwa. He's a Congolese, and we'll be chatting Congolese solidarity campaigns and the urgent call for solidarity with the Congolese people. And he'll be joining us right after this.